As you've already explained several times during earlier conversations, when researchers become acute and open to cloning worldwide, then a few more explanatory words from your side will certainly be advantageous. At the same time, if you could even address, for example, the greatest danger of cloning, I mean in terms of what can impair the lives of clones, then this would, perhaps, be of use. Quetzal says in repetition of your remarks, I can confirm that a clone is only an internal and external organic reproduction of a body, that is of an animal, etc. or a person. Nevertheless, it doesn't concern the same animal instinct nature, as well as not the same human personality and, thus, not the same physical body, from which a cell is taken and, with it, our clone is created. In every case, it concerns a completely different body that is entirely just a reproduction of the body, from which the cell is taken. Also, the spirit form animating the clone, which is connected with its own overall consciousness block and with its own personality, can never be the same as that of the person donating the cell. In truth, a spirit form that is independent from the person donating the cell, with its associated overall consciousness block and personality created by it, moves into the clone and animates this. And since the spirit form is of a creative nature, it cannot be manipulated by human beings, consequently, it also cannot be transferred from a person donating a cell to a clone. This is also not possible for the overall consciousness block, as well as not for the personality created by this, which is integrated into it. Moreover, the spirit form and the overall consciousness block with its created personality are an inseparable unit, from which it likewise follows that a transferring of this to a clone cannot be carried out by a person donating a cell or by any other person. This is precisely because the spirit form can in no way be manipulated by human beings. Concerning the greatest danger in cloning, it is to be explained that this can be found in the deformation and mutation of the growth genes, particularly the growth factor 2 gene, as we name it, and also make it known to the earthly scientists via impulses. In the case of improper cloning, this gene can lead to the formation of lethal tumors. This will also be the case for a fairly long time with the cloning research of the earthly scientists, before they get the secrets of cloning further on track, by what means this danger that is fatal for clones can be avoided, but this requires a lot of time and researches as well as experiments, which will go into the tens of thousands. The factor of the genes falling prey to deformities and mutations is founded in the lack of methyl groups in the DNA. The lack of methyl molecules in the growth genes produces a too rapid and too large growth of the internal and external organs of a clone's body, which, sooner or later, inevitably leads to serious illnesses, deformities, and to the death of the body. Of the internal organs, primarily the kidneys and the liver are affected, but also everything else of the body in a lesser or stronger form. Especially in the 11th chromosome, deformities and mutations occur upon cloning, which lead to lethal growth enlargements of various organs. However, all the other approximately 30,000 genes are susceptible upon cloning, whereby also lethal cell, vascular, and organ enlargements appear in special forms of elephantiasis. In this consequence, the entire immune system is also simultaneously overloaded and weakened, by what means severe malfunctions of the organs arise. The whole thing arises from the fact that upon an improper cloning, the methyl molecules of various genes are damaged, by what means ultimately, at any time, a failure of the organs can also occur. Thus, if the methyl molecules which activate the genes are defective or if they are completely missing, then a successful cloning of life forms of every kind is absolutely impossible in the way that healthy and long-lasting, viable clones can be created. The cloning of life forms, so also of humans, cannot be prevented, for it is in the nature of human progress that even cloning makes a great contribution to evolution. Even if in the coming time, worldwide steps are first taken to ban all cloning, the inevitable step will still be taken in the course of time, even if this will first happen only in secret in some places. Technological and medical development and human progress are not to be stopped, and also not the evolution of the consciousness and the spirit. But it will still take a long time before it is correctly decided upon and handled through reason, with regard to the cloning of human life forms. Many scientists will very well work on this and achieve some small successes, but they won't succeed very quickly in creating healthy and viable clones because the aforementioned danger cannot first be recognized and cannot be removed. Thus, it will still take a fairly long time before everything can be handled properly and then also be brought to useful application. When the time comes, which will be in a few years, animals will be cloned first, but no life will be granted for too long because they will already perish after a short time or only after a few years. Also, only a few clones will actually be produced because hundreds and thousands of tests and experiments will be necessary to create just a single clone. Unfortunately, it is inevitable that when cloning research becomes acute, irresponsible elements will appear, such as doctors, scientists, and unscrupulous, criminal and mendacious as well as deceitfully inclined sectarians, who will try to create clones for despicable, selfish, self-aspiring and profit-greedy as well as self-glorifying reasons through the pretense of false facts and a false reality, as we know from a look into the future. Through lies and fraudulence, these irresponsible elements will mislead many people in this and lead them to believe unreal things. So this will be, of course, for very large and horrendous financial contributions, in order to let themselves or deceased relatives be cloned, whereby eternal life will mendaciously and fraudulently be promised for the cloning of one's own person. This, in addition to the fact that criminal elements want to and will make capital out of cloning, by misleading women and men who are unable to reproduce to create genetically reproduced offspring. And indeed, even though Earth humanity overflows in its mass more and more, this is a fact, by which more and more problems constantly and irresistibly arise in every respect, and indeed, also in the sense that men increasingly become impotent and women increasingly become incapable of conceiving. However, the problem of overpopulation is not solved through this because more and more descendants still appear worldwide, by what means, eventually, everything will get completely out of control. Billy says something with your remarks isn't clear to me, namely that which you once told me, that cloning research has already been pursued for quite some time on Earth in a confidential manner, and that a clone has already existed for years. Quetzal says that is correct. It concerns the fact that in a certain country, which I may not name officially, an extremely confidential project of cloning research has been pursued for several years, namely for the purpose of creating cloned human fighting machines. Indeed, a human, male life form was already cloned, but it is only capable of surviving in that it is kept alive by medical apparatuses. Unofficially, other human clones will be created as laboratory objects around the middle of the 90s, but this will remain very top secret and will be denied. First of all, only the cloning of animals will be made known. Billy says I can imagine that. And how will it be, then, with these human clones? Will these be capable of surviving then? Quetzal says no, even these will only prolong their existence through medical apparatuses. Billy says horrible when I just think of their working consciousness, I feel sick. Quetzal says the cloned male life form that already exists is no longer mighty in clear thought because it stunted its consciousness completely. The new laboratory clones will also suffer the same fate. Billy says criminal, but perhaps at release for the clones. Quetzal says that is correct. Billy says I was given a question that I could not answer, namely when in the last 20,000 years did the worst earthquakes in Switzerland take place? Since you deal with Earth's geology, you should actually be able to answer the question for me, right? Quetzal says the largest and most severe earthquakes in the area of present-day Switzerland were, counted back from today, 1,601 years ago as well as 2,420 and 14,560 years ago. In addition, Other severe earthquakes are forthcoming in the future, particularly after the turn of the millennium, but not only in